Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Me. I was 9 years old at the time. Grandma passed away, and we are visiting relatives for the funeral. They are gonna bury her at the village where our relatives used to live. Village is basically like a ghost town. Only 5 or 6 families live there. It is winter time. Took us literally 5 hours to arrive in a cramped-ass car. Snow is knee-deep. First day having fun playing at snow with the kids of distant relatives. Don't know any of them. We are staying in a village house full of people, and they are heating the house with a coal furnace. First day passes by, trying to sleep in a room full of people. I am lucky to have a bed alongside the window. Cannot sleep cause uncomfortable. Cannot leave the room either cause cannot wake up others. Watching out the window. It is pitch black outside, not a single lamppost. Just a really dim light shining from a distance. Don't pay much attention and fall asleep eventually. Next day other relatives arrive, such as the deceased grandma, for burial. We buried her, and I spent the rest of time hanging out in the village with my uncle, making a snowman, playing snowball, etc. It is the second night, and I try to sleep in the same room I share with 10 other people. Only thing lighting up the room is the furnace, and the only sound I hear is the crackling wood. Strong whistles of wind and occasionally some snoring. Cannot sleep yet again. Watching out the window inside a heavy-ass blanket. No light outside except that light I saw a day before, but this time it is closer. Squint my eyes to see better, but still cannot understand what it is. It is a dim orange light, flickering from time to time. Close my eyes to sleep, but no luck, turning inside bed for a couple hours. Trying hard to sleep. Open my eyes to take a look at windows. Light is even closer. Now I can vaguely see what it is. A young woman in a really thin white nightdress holding a gas lamp. Standing there doing nothing in the freezing cold night. Cannot see her face. Think she is the lunatic of the village or something. Kinda scared, but also afraid of waking up people. Go back to sleep hoping she would go home. Take a couple hours of sleep, but wake up in the middle of the night. Feeling uneasy. Look out the window again. She is gone, has a relief, and goes back to sleep. Later that day, I talked with the cousin from my mom's side, or I assume he was my cousin because I don't really know my relatives from mom's side. He, my uncle, and I are sitting in the house talking about horror stories. They are talking about old folk stories that really spooked me out at the time. Guess no sleep for today. It is nighttime again. Go back to sleep. This time most guests left, but we are planning to stay a couple more days. Alone in my room that night. Feeling nervous and having a hard time sleeping. I wanted to watch out the window, but was too spooked by the stories I heard and the crazy lady I saw, which I did not tell anyone for some reason. It is really snowy outside. Almost like a snowstorm. Whistles of wind don't help either. A cold breeze hitting me in the face coming from gaps around the window. Look outside to see the storm. The moment I turn my head, see that crazy lady in the same nightdress, holding a gas lamp. She is not too close, but close enough so I can see her face. Stare at her for a couple seconds, but she suddenly disappears into the snow. Want to scream but hold myself. Get on the ground and spend all night awake. Later that day I did not talk about this to anyone because my asshole cousin already makes fun of me for being such a coward. Fast forward a couple years. Visiting my grandpa. Aunt and uncle, they live together. See my aunt and mom looking at old photo albums. Take a look at the album over my mom's shoulder. See an old picture of my grandma for the first time. She looks so different. Grandma suffered from cancer and gained a lot of weight over the years. So this is not how I remember her. Take a closer look at the picture. It is the same women I saw that night. Wanted to talk about this to my mother, but did not want to bring back bad memories. So I dumped it here.
I want to share a funny one if that's okay. It's one of those, I was the spook, stories. In 5th grade. My friend and I are super into scary stories to tell in the dark. We decide it would be funny to come up with our own ghost story and freak everyone out. So we make up a story about the school bathroom being haunted. In my school, the 5th grade bathroom was the only bathroom that was all by itself. We'd ask the teacher to go, then come back and lie to the other boys about having seen a ghost. I told them I heard a disembodied voice. My friend said he felt someone touch him. Then we elaborate the story and say that the previous year, some kid had done the Bloody Mary ritual in the school bathroom and gone missing. Supposedly Bloody Mary snatched him and pulled him into the mirror, and now he's trapped in there. So it was just all of this fake lore that we made up. But the other kids start believing it because we keep insisting that it's all real. Pretty soon, other kids are coming back from bathroom breaks shaken up, claiming to have heard voices in there. Everybody's got their own story. Then shit starts hitting the fan. People start getting too scared to use the bathroom alone. One kid gets caught pissing in the coat closet to avoid going by himself. Another kid shits his pants trying to hold it in till recess. Shit like this is happening in every 5th grade class. Teachers get us all together one day and demand to know who started the rumor about the haunted bathroom. Nobody can even remember that it was me and my friend because they've all been making up their own stories by this point. A Jehovah's Witness kid gets pulled out of school because his parents think something demonic is happening at the school. Bathroom mirrors are found shattered one day. Some kid apparently went in and broke them all. Thought it would get Bloody Mary and the missing kid to leave us all alone. The school had to pay to get it all repaired. Many keks.
I haven't had many spooky experiences, but here's a weird one that I can't really explain. B19, UK, working at a popular value store. Work in a smallish town, decently busy but not as bad as retail in the city was. On-site staff is usually one manager, 1 or 2 senior assistants, and 2 to 4 grunts like me, either fellow kids or people not old enough to retire yet. One of whom babysits the till while the rest do the proper work. In a large building that used to be something else. An Argos maybe. But we only use half the space. Ground floor is where people shop, and there's a back room where we store product, and stairs. Upstairs is where the office, cloakroom, and staff toilet are. Along with a shabby break room nobody uses ever. All connected by a narrow corridor that runs the length of the building. Oh, and this massive empty warehouse that sits parallel to the corridor. It's definitely bigger than the ground floor. I think it extends over the neighboring shop. Spooky as hell. We don't use it because too many stairs, but everybody says it's unnerving to go in there. It doesn't help that the entire upper floor is uninsulated, so it's either freezing cold or smothering hot, but the floor is so thick that you can't really hear any of the people's noise below. Anyway, go for a mid-shift piss after spending 3 hours stood at the till. As I'm finishing up, I hear this sound coming from the unused warehouse. Sounds like a lot of stuff falling down, like a full shelf collapsing. Kinda weird considering that we don't really store anything in there unless we've got way too much stock, but I figure I should go and see what it was. Creak open the door and I'm instantly taken aback by how warm it was in there in January. No less. It's been cloudy but it feels like a fucking greenhouse in there. Switch the light on. There's no proper windows, just a few of those glass bricks that let in a little bit of light. Absolutely no stock here, no pile of fallen shit. Nothing. Poke around but there's really not much to look at besides the stock lift and a walk-in closet full of spare freezer dividers and plastic signs and stuff. You know. Figure it was something in there but I don't really want to hang around. The weird heat is making me a bit uncomfortable. Leave and visit the office to ask if the manager heard anything. Nobody in there, must have been on the shop floor. Go back down to resume my place at the till. Notice that whoever I'd asked to watch it while I was gone has fucked off. Inwardly bitch about it. Realize that I didn't pass the manager, senior coming back through the stockroom. Realize that the entire shop is empty as I pace up and down. Look out the big glass window of the storefront. It's 6 p.m. but there's nobody out there, either. It's as if I'm the only person in the whole town. Despite having fantasized about this scenario before. I'm freaking out a bit now. I go back upstairs, hoping that it's all just a coincidence and I'll meet some member of staff up there. Nope. And now the entire upstairs floor is enveloped in that warmth I felt in the warehouse. Go back to the employee bathroom. The single stall we have is occupied. The door swings open if it's not locked. Want to say something, but suddenly feel very awkward, like I'm freaking out over nothing while my boss is trying to shit or something. Getting dizzy, probably from the stifling heat. Hand hovering, wanting to knock on the stall door, when I hear this loud slam echo around the room. Spin round sharply, but the bathroom door is still open. Look behind me again. The stall is now empty and the door is hanging open as usual. Stumble back into the corridor, taking deep breaths and sweating. Realize it's freezing cold like it should be. Head downstairs and everything is normal. Coworkers think I was taking a 10-minute shit. Don't say anything because how the fuck do you explain that? I still don't know what happened. Never told anybody there about it.
This one could be just being dumb but still stumps me, and anything I decide I feel would just be cope because I don't have a concrete idea of what happened. Be me, cat sitting for my sister. Keep the cat in the spare bedroom because he doesn't like my cats. I still live at home. Get a bad feeling. Just a baseless worry, but I check anyway. My face when he's not here. Check every corner of that room. It's not a big room. Under the blankets, in the closet, in the window, no cat. Okay, he escaped, let's go look for him. Check all over the house, none of my cats are on edge. I still can't find him, so I decide to try to scare him out of wherever he is. Grab a broom and start slapping it around all the rooms of the house, under beds, under tables, against walls. No cat. Okay, maybe he's somehow hidden in the room he's supposed to be in. Repeat my broom procedure in the room. What the fuck, he's nowhere here. Repeat broom slap across the house again. Be that baseless feeling happens again. Feels like this is all just too stupid, so I say fuck it. Grab the broom and slam it down like Gandalf and say give me the cat back. Finish searching the living room again. Go back into his room, he's sleeping on the bed. Am I crazy or did I save the cat? He's an asshole, but he started opening up to me a little before this happened.
Be me. Nashville 2017. If you know anything about the city, you'll know that it was around this time it started getting big. What's important to note is that before this, the city was a near perfect blend of rural and urban. Not everywhere, but a lot of places. I lived in a suburb where driving 15 minutes in opposite directions would take you either downtown or into natural reserve territory. It was in this suburb I had my first legitimate spiritual encounter. And I will die on the hill that I didn't imagine any of it. Brother. Find free 90s style TV. Beaten up but pleasant aesthetic. Mom doesn't want it in the house. Hide it in the backyard until coming to a decision on what to do with it. Backyard nothing but thick copses of trees and nature. Remember, depending on where you live, there's a perfect blend of city and nature. It wasn't uncommon for some neighborhoods to be divided by thick patches of legitimate forest. Eventually come to the decision to hide it in the forest. Secret forest hideout. Secrecy. Wait until nightfall to move it cause HOA is trash. Nightfall. Join brother to hide it in forest. Halfway through the backyard when something's wrong. Feel something's wrong. Brother.
What are you talking about, drugs?
Seriously. Be quiet. Everything is silent on a humid summer's night. No bugs, no wind, no people, no crickets. Something is seriously out of place. Distinctly feel like we're being watched. But there are no neighbors out at 11 p.m. Feel multiple pairs of eyes. Start looking around. Nothing around. Brother starts talking again and I tell him to be quiet. Do you feel that? We're being watched.
No, we're not.
Keep looking around because something is watching us. Multiple somethings. I feel chills up my spine and goosebumps. A few seconds later, the most stereotypical fog rolls in. Wide, covers vision, but not thick enough to not see through. Something is seriously not right. Start panicking cause I can't find the source. As quickly as it came in, the fog disappeared. Couldn't have been more than a minute. When it disappears, revealing the location of the staring. I distinctly remember it and my description hasn't changed in the years since this took place. To one side of our house, next to a tree lining, was what I could only describe as an Inky group of malevolent entities. I remember staring at that patch of darkness and seeing this group's eyes piercing through my brother and I. Their stares felt oily, Inky, and dark. That is the most appropriate description I can give of how it felt being stared at by them. Almost as important was that I could tell they were malevolent. I could tell they meant to cause harm to my brother and I. What they were going to do. And when, I had no idea, but I know for a fact they meant us harm. Stare at the entities. Brother is mildly freaking out cause he can't sense them and I'm acting borderline schizo.
Why haven't they hurt us?
As soon as the thought enters my mind, Another group above the tree lining reveals themselves, at least 3 times bigger than malevolent spirits. Saw the group as they kept the entities at bay, guarding my brother and I from their harm. 2 groups, standing there menacingly. This is a spiritual Cold War. Who's going to give first? After that incident, I remember looking at games like Final Fantasy or any RPGs that have you fighting spirits, gods, and laughing, standing before the 2 groups. I remember as clear as day I had 0 amounts of fear for the simple reason I couldn't comprehend what was in front of me. I knew what I was looking at, but I couldn't comprehend just how otherworldly these things were. I couldn't grasp their immensity, like recognizing infinity, but only as a concept. You don't know how deep infinity really is. A malevolent group staring at us, defending group staring at them, continued for what felt like hours. Was most likely 40 to 60 seconds. Malevolent groups vanished like a wisp. The defending group watched them leave. Stuck around for another 10 seconds to make sure they were gone. Leave. Crickets come back. Tell brother we'll put the TV in the woods tomorrow.
What? No, let's do it now.
I'm not tempting that group to come back. We're going back inside. Left TV in the open. Being raised Baptist. I think those were demons and angels respectively. My brother once asked me what I would have done had he ignored my warnings and kept walking. And I told him I'd have choked him out. It sounds edgy. But that's the only time I've ever said anything like that to him, because it was a legitimate Cold War between them. If we did something stupid, I'm not sure what would have happened aside from a dreadful certainty that our lives would have been in legitimate danger. To this day, what astounds me most was the distinct lack of fear. I really couldn't grasp just how deep those entities were. Maybe others have had similar feelings. Maybe different, but that was mine.
Spooky. Those beings remind me of a thread from a few weeks back. I think a forest ranger mentioned that in the woods where he worked, he and his colleagues frequently saw black shadowy figures which he also described as Inky. Specifically, he called them Inky black humanoids. Also, semi-related, but I have a number of friends who have seen black shadowy entities. Mexican friend from El Paso. Grew up seeing the Hat Man. Had never heard of him though. She just told me the stories and I explained to her that it was an entity that people all over the world report seeing. She told me she never thought he was scary, just interesting, and she found his appearances cool. Another friend originally from England. Grew up seeing tall black humanoid shadows in her house. They walked hunched over because they were so tall they touched the ceiling. She and her sister both saw them multiple times. Again, never frightened, just thought it was strange. Another friend from Texas. He grew up very poor, but had a friend who lived in an old 2-story house. Went often after school. Frequently saw shadows moving in his peripheral vision. His friend tells him that the shadows are like little people. He's seen them before, but you have to be quick to catch them as they move. They spend an afternoon watching out of the corner of their eyes and trying to catch the shadows as they zip by. A friend times it perfectly a couple of times and sees the shadows straight on. They look like weird little triangles, almost like black shadowy stars. But they feel like people somehow.
Dad lives with brothers and sisters in the deep south. Very rural area, raised by very strict parents. One day they get it into their heads to summon the devil. It's the middle of the day, and I guess they don't have much to do. So they go out near the woods and find a quiet spot where they won't be disturbed. They sit in a circle, holding hands, and start concentrating on seeing the devil in the center of the circle. After a bit, my dad's oldest sister calls out for the devil to show himself. Right before their eyes they see a swirling ball that looks sort of like it's made out of fire. Dad's ears go deaf and the fireball circles upwards, over their heads and then shoots off down the tree line and disappears. Dad and siblings take off running back to the house and tell their parents what happened. Grandpa beats Dad for summoning the devil. The cool thing about this story was that all my uncles and aunts are still living, and all have confirmed it happened. Both my Grandpa Rip and Grandma also remember this particular day. Like I said, it's not much, but it's a real story that I've heard all my life growing up. Remember, my dad's fireball story reminded me of the Marfa lights. I used to see them nearly every night during a 2-week period while I was working out there. Work involved clearing out this huge stretch of open ranchland and building things for an upcoming wedding. Job was from 6 a.m. to whenever the fuck our boss told us to stop, usually about a 14-hour shift. This was every day, so we'd usually be worn out by the end of the day. Would end up just sitting out there staring off into the mountains at the end of the day. I had a best friend that I worked with, and we'd usually crack open a beer and watch the lights. This guy was originally from Mexico. He told me that Mexicans believe the lights are witches that fly around in the form of a fireball. But some people say the lights are a sign pointing to buried treasure. A very common belief down in Mexico apparently. Find this very interesting because of an old story involving my grandpa. This is another story that is well known in my family, but it comes from Mom's side. Grandpa took in this kid whose family basically abandoned him. Kid was fiercely loyal to my grandpa as a result. He heard about the lights and wanted to see if the legends of buried treasure were true. He thought he owed it to my grandpa for taking him in, or something like that. So one night the kid disappears. Grandpa is wondering where he went, a nervous wreck. Kid returns, and he's clearly spooked. He tells Grandpa a weird story. I'll refer to this kid as Albert from this point on. Albert waited till it got dark and kept his eyes on the mountains. He saw one of the lights appear and he went up the mountain towards it. He found the spot where the light was. It looked like a fire. He'd brought a shovel with him and dug under it. He found a huge satchel loaded with gold. Heaved it up out of the ground and began hurrying down the mountain. Should have mentioned that the treasure is supposed to be cursed. Albert's anxious to get off the mountain, but he's feeling proud of himself for finding the gold. He's about to set foot on the mountain when he finds himself stuck. Feels like someone is holding him in place, like a person wrapped their arms around him. He hears a voice whispering to him and he's looking around, but there's no one there. The voice keeps whispering and squeezing, and Albert is trying to wriggle free from the invisible grip. As he does, he drops the satchel. Instantly, he's able to move freely again. He takes off running back towards my grandpa's ranch. Comes in clearly spooked and tells my grandpa this story. Grandpa is livid, but curious about what the voice was whispering to Albert. Albert is visibly shaking and stutters.
All or nothing.
From that point on, Albert had a stutter, and eventually he lost the ability to speak. I met him as a kid and he was a total mute. Grandpa said he thought the voice was saying that Albert had to take every piece of gold buried in the mountains, or none of it at all. Till the day he died, he believed that there must be way more gold buried up in those mountains than anyone thinks, and often talked about going up there with a crew, but never did. Continuing with another story. I won't attempt to have anything as good as that, but I will reiterate that all the ones I'm sharing here are actual stories I've heard directly from people I trust. Some will probably sound made up, but they're not. Here's a basic one. I have an aunt. She lives alone with my little cousin. One day we went to visit her and she casually mentioned that several years ago she saw a ghost. She goes on to say that this was several years back, when my cousin was just a newborn. She was home alone when she heard something that sounded like a person on her front porch. The whole area around her house is cement, so it was a very clear clicking sound, like someone with dress shoes or high heels walking around the porch. She could hear it from her bedroom window because her room was very close to the front door. She got a little nervous, being a single mother with a newborn and all, so she very carefully glanced outside through her curtains. So let me describe the scene. Aunt's window looks out onto a solid gray wall. A full moon is illuminating the wall. My aunt hears the clicking of someone walking around. Then it begins to move towards her bedroom window. As the clicking grows closer, a shadow appears on the wall opposite her window. It moves past, as though somebody is walking by, but there's nobody there. Aunt watches, silently freaking out, as the shadow moves past the room and out of sight around the corner of the house. She walks over to the window that faces the street. Look outside. The shadow is now clearly moving down the road. Clicking of footsteps following it. But there's not a soul in sight.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.